play a lot with web development or anything else until way later when I was like 30 years old. The journey starts a bit later in life in web development, but I've always been a nerd in a good way, so I've enjoyed it.
+2 mean your wife and your daughter, and now you have a boy, so it will be +3.
Yeah.
Which is a funny story.
It is, yeah. And we have a dog now too, so maybe it should be like 3.5.
How was the experience working with Shopify app back then in 2011? So I think it will be a UI5 fanboy because of the developer community.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think my dream was always to be able to do it full time, but I thought, hey, if I've been able to grow it to this size as I'm just doing it a few hours at night, then imagine what I could do if I could spend full time. Purchase is really good for conversions, like you'll get a lot of conversions doing one time. But at the end of the day, you'll hit a sort of a ceiling for how much you can make using one-time purchases. Shopify platform does support so many different things that having just the most basic functionality just isn't enough. You do need to build something a bit more polished and a little bit more feature-rich than you would have many years ago.
Hi, welcome guys to the Let's Code podcast, a podcast where we interview software engineers to share their entrepreneurial story. And here we are on our 14th episode for the podcast. It's been quite a journey, and for today's episode we have Bjorn Forsberg, who will be sharing his story about how he gets started in web development, his journey with Shopify app. He's been working with Shopify since 2011, so it's been quite a journey. And from that, we will start diving in his journey after this intro. Welcome, Bjorn, into our podcast. And you have the mic, so you can introduce yourself.
Yeah, cool. Thank you for having me. It's really cool to chat. Bjorn Forsberg. I've been running Forsberg +2 since 2011, like you said. And it's always been focused on Shopify apps. And for a long time, it was just me doing it on my own, and then eventually started building out a very small team. But been enjoying the journey. Probably one of the people that's been in the Shopify space for a bit longer than most, but still enjoying it. So it's good.
Awesome. So you are one of the OG of the Shopify developer space.
Yeah, makes me feel old, but yeah, I guess it's true, right?
Yeah. Awesome. So just to give the audience more background about your work, can you give us more story about how did you get started in web development? And after that, we can talk about the switch into Shopify.
Yeah, sure. So I'm not a professionally trained web developer or anything like that. I played around with computers a lot when I was a kid and built my first computer as a child and was always interested in technology. And then in high school, when I was maybe like 15, 16, built a few websites for my favorite bands at the time. And it was an old platform called GeoCities. So I had this really crappy old laptop where you could only really do text editing on it. So I had this book, HTML for Dummies. And then I'd at night sit there and type up HTML and then go into the school the next day and upload it to actually see what it looked like. So we didn't have internet at the time. So that's when I played around with it. And then I didn't really play a lot with web development or anything else until way later when I was like 30 years old. I was working for a investment bank online trading platform in Denmark and was getting more into project management and being on the business side of designing software. So taking the requirements and saying, okay, development team, can you please build this? And then they would go away and build it. So I understood the process of web development, but hadn't done much of it myself. Still interested in technology, of course. But so Shopify apps was really my first dive into doing anything myself. And the first app that I had built was actually outsourced and built by a team in India. So I did all the requirements and everything like that. And then I started dabbling in the source code of my own app and trying to work out how it did all the different things it does. Then, got more into it that way and finally started building my own apps and have been doing it ever since. So I guess my journey starts a bit later in life in web development, but I've always been a nerd in a good way, so I've enjoyed it.
Oh, awesome. Thank you for mentioning that. And I think from your LinkedIn, I saw that you have a computer science degree. Okay.
No, I don't think so.
Okay, let's be check, 'cause
I don't have any degrees.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's learned by doing, really.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Also myself, I don't have any degree in computer science. I just learn it myself.
Yeah, I've always been the type of person that learns as I need things, right? So I'll run into a problem and then I'll go, okay, let me research this and work out how it all works and then try it then. I find that the best way to learn, at least, is learn by doing and not so much theory, right?
Yes,
Yeah,
exactly. And when you are learning by doing, you will have more choice to pick which thing you would like to know. For example, you don't have to learn geography if you are doing like a like
yeah,
computer
yeah.
science degree. You will just learn computer science degree stuff. You don't need to learn the other, I would say, other complementary stuff that will not like make it like make you a better developer, maybe a better person to like have more culture and knowledge, but not computer science related.
Yeah, exactly. And I think even within computer science, there's a lot of theory that is maybe interesting to learn, but it's not very useful in everyday working, right? You always see these sort of bubble sort algorithms that people get asked to do in interviews and things. And really, most of that's solved by the languages, right? So you can, you just say in Rails, you do sort or sort by and this type of things. For me, it's more learning, okay, what are the tools I can use to do these things? And I don't always have to understand how things work under the hood, as long as I move forward and achieve the goal that I'm trying to do.
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah,
Yeah,
I think
it's fun.
we agree about this point.
Yeah,
And,
good.
And you originally started your company Forsberg plus two as a side project while you are working in the investment bank. And the story behind the name, I saw it, I think, in your page. That is plus two mean your wife and your daughter, and now you have a boy, so it will be plus three.
Yeah.
Which is a funny story.
It is, yeah. And we have a dog now too, so maybe it should be like 3.5 or something.
Yeah.
But, yeah, it's a terrible name because it's super long. And do you type the plus as a symbol or as actual letters? But anyway, if I could do it again, I'd do it differently. But I really like the thought behind it. And the idea with starting the company was to try and do something for our family, which would be better for the future than me going to work whenever, every day. So the whole thought at the time, we just had our daughter, and the whole thought was to try and start something where our life would be more in our own control than a regular 9 to 5 job. And I guess a lot of people going onto the Shopify path are maybe doing, or just web development in general, are trying to do something similar. So
yes, yeah, makes sense. And talking about Shopify, what was your first Shopify app that you made under the umbrella of your company?
Yeah, so the first app was Orderly Print, which was to do like invoices in bulk. So at the time, Shopify had a free app which allowed you to do like an invoice for a single order. And I thought, hey, if people are getting many orders, that's going to be a pretty tiresome sort of process to do one at a time. So the first app was really helping people to print documents many at a time, up to 250 orders at a time. And it's, like I said, was built by a outsourced company to begin with, and then I started picking it apart and learning how it all worked myself, and started adding features and things. But it started making money from day one. Not a lot of money, but you could see the development, and if you keep at it and keep improving the product, then you could see a future for it. So the first couple of years really were just improving on that product and trying to learn all the different things related to Shopify app development as well, not just the coding, but also marketing and customer service and everything else. And I was just doing that during the evening, so it's a bit different nowadays. But the way I chose that app was really based on what I could see was needed in the market, and maybe not what I actually enjoyed. Like, I'm not that passionate about invoices or anything, but it's just kind of the path I've gone down. But I think it makes sense to build for what you can see a need for, and what you think you can do better than what is currently there, and things like that. But so that was going along for a couple of years and making money, and I was just sending the money over, to the development team. So eventually, that's when I picked up learning to code and to do things myself.
Awesome. So the first, I would say, the first version of Orderly Print was built by an outsourcing company in India, and after that, you get the project and you start adding feature, fixing bugs yourself, learning how to code. How was the experience working with Shopify app back then in 2011? So I think it will be a huge difference.
You really just had the API, right? And the OAuth process. So there was no such thing as an embedded app. Which was actually, as obviously embedded apps make a good UX for the merchants, but I really enjoyed the process of building a real SaaS app back then because you could have your own, you got to choose what the layout should be. How should the design of the app be? What color scheme should you use? So it was a bit more free, but obviously you were limited in how you could integrate with Shopify. You basically just had the API. And I chose to build using Ruby on Rails because that's basically what Shopify were using. And most of their documentation was showing, Ruby on Rails. So that's why I had the apps built in. But yeah, I guess it was a lot simpler back then, but also the market was smaller and the amount of customizations that you could put into Shopify to make it easier for merchants was much less.
Okay, makes sense. So it was simpler for the developer to be able to build a Shopify app, but it was harder to be able to extend the functionality of Shopify because it was limited in terms of customization, how you can extend the feature, for example, let's say checkout or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and then also you have these links to launch apps from within the Shopify admin. Say you select some orders and you can go to actions and, launch an app from there. And those things just didn't exist at the time. So it was basically go to the app, log in, and then do what the app does, and then opens it in a separate screen and all this type of thing. Yeah. Which was, it was, I guess, a bit more free, but also more limited.
Awesome. And how was the developer community back then?
It was a lot smaller, but I think it was still just as open as it is today. And that's one of the things that I really fell in love with in the whole, the whole development community within Shopify is that everybody was sharing what they're working on. And I think that's part of, what helped to grow the App Store quite a lot as well, because people were welcoming and the Shopify App Store team were really good at making suggestions and things for improving. And it was a great community, and I think that's what has helped me stick around for such a long time. That community is still there and keeps growing, right?
Awesome, yeah. I think I share the same feeling about the Shopify community, and this is why I am I would say a Shopify fanboy because of the developer community.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, we all like to, highlight things that we think could be better, but we also are really good at, sharing podcasts like this, and people are generally open to helping out or sharing what they know. It definitely makes, for a great thing. And, if you go to some of the Shopify events, you get to meet people in person, and some people I've been meeting for over 10 years now, which is amazing. It's fun.
Yes. Yeah. It's really special to meet the developer community, especially the Shopify developer community in person. And we meet at the Shopify Edition, and
we did.
It was really great to meet you in person.
Yeah, you too. Yeah, it was nice. It's such a different, sometimes if you're just only interacting on Twitter or online, right, you don't always get a feel for how people are. And people are generally super friendly when, meet them in person. And yeah, it's great.
Yeah, it's really special. Yeah. Thank you for mentioning that.
Yeah.
And the second app was, I think, order printer templates, if I would say.
Yeah, order printer templates. So that kind of came out of, so I had Orderly Print, and then Shopify came out with a new app which was free and allowed people to also print multiple documents at a time. So it was a competitor to my app, and I could see it eating into the user base of my app. But one of the things that their free app was missing was a way to customize templates within the app. So you could code them using Liquid, but of course many merchants aren't developers.
Yes.
And so I saw an opportunity to create a editor, so a visual editor where you pick a design, much like the Shopify theme editor, right? You pick a design, you customize it, upload your logo and everything, and at the end you purchase it, and it spits out the template code that you can then take and put into Shopify's free app.
Okay.
So it's really a design tool, and that kind of that was doing really well, and still does well. Yeah, obviously it was a forced app. I could see how I need to pivot a little bit here, and instead of changing my original app, come up with a way to capitalize on this. Yeah, and because it's a one-time purchase, obviously people come in and they find it quite easy to justify the cost. It's a one-time cost. They're not adding something every month. So it's sold really well.
Awesome.
I was going to say that brought me on to my third app as well, which came not too long after, which is Orderly Emails. And I guess the idea came from the similar pattern where for the Shopify emails that they're sending, like order confirmation, shipping confirmation, all these automated emails that the store sends, Again, they can only be customized via code in Shopify. You can upload a logo, but that's pretty much it. And so I saw the same opportunity that I already built this first editor. So why not do the same thing, but for email templates? And so I created Order emails then, following a similar sort of pattern. Also a one-time purchase at the time, and that did really well. And that's when I could start considering quitting my job.
Awesome. So after your third app, you quit your work at the investment bank and start doing Shopify full time. That's
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So up until that point, I'd just been doing it all, during the evenings. And, my dream was always to be able to do it full time but I thought, hey, if I've been able to grow it to this size as I'm just doing it a few hours at night, then, imagine what I could do if I could spend full time on this. And so I waited until, obviously I had a young family and everything at the time. So I couldn't just, quit my job and bet everything. But it worked out well. And I waited until my income from the apps was high enough that I, basically replacing my income with at the bank, and then I could switch over to do it full time.
Awesome. Love that.
Yeah.
And what was the difference between because you mentioned that the second app was one-time purchase. What was the difference between one-time purchase and subscription back then in terms of revenue, in terms of user? So what was the difference, and what make you make that choice?
Yeah, I think the choice was really because it's not an app that people use all the time. Like, you come in, you use it once, you customize your template, and then you take it and put it into the other place and actually use it somewhere else, not inside them. So we didn't have really like a user base logging in every day to use the app. They were just coming, using it, and then going away, right? And it felt a lot more fair that it was a one-time payment. And of course, they could come back and update it for free and customize things again if they needed to. But it was very rare that they'd be logging in often. So our costs were really low. And then at the same time, I thought our conversion rate will be higher if we make it a one-time purchase. It'll be much simpler to convince people to buy this. And I think it was right. One-time purchase is really good for conversions. Like, you'll get a lot of conversions doing one-time. But at the end of the day, you'll hit a sort of a ceiling for how much you can make using one-time purchases, because there's only going to be a certain amount of people finding your app every day, and only a certain amount of those people buying the app every day. And so because nobody's paying you again in the future, obviously you'll just max out at that amount. And that's what's happened. It's not a great sort of long-term strategy if you want to build a big app, but I think depending on the type of app that you're building, maybe it makes sense, because it's a lot easier to convert somebody. And you can maybe charge more as a one-time payment than you would if it was a recurring subscription, right? So maybe like a recurring, you might have it at $10, whereas a one-time, maybe you can say, well, it's $50 one time, and then you've captured more money up front, but you just won't get any more, right?
Yeah, that's pros and cons of subscription versus one-time.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, if you can get a subscription app working, then that's 100% better, right? Because they'll continue to pay you.
Yeah,
and especially if you get the pricing right. Yeah.
Yes, it's always the pricing. It's really hard to be able to figure out, especially when you are just starting out, because there's a lot of different strategy. And for example, if you choose subscription versus like a one-time fee, how much you will charge, it's really difficult to be able to choose the right strategy from like at the start. It's really one of the challenging part of starting a business.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's worth being more experimental than maybe I'm comfortable doing. Like, I should have experimented more with pricing through the years. Generally, whenever I've experimented with pricing and maybe increased prices or changed it from being a one-time to a yearly subscription, for example, is quite a good way to do it. It's always resulted in more money in the end. But I'm always really fearful whenever I'm going to change pricing on something. I'd say experiment more, because you can always change it. If you do set prices too high, then you can always adjust it down again.
Yes, exactly. Just do A/B testing and see which one will works for your customer and for you.
Yeah, exactly. And then if it is at the lower price, then make sure to go back to the people that are paying the higher price and have them update their subscription, so at least they're not paying more than everyone else, right? But you can always do that afterwards. Once you're finished with your experiment, and then you make sure that people sort of the correct pricing.
Yes, exactly. This is a good point to mention, because you don't want to pay much more than other people for the same service.
Exactly, yeah. And if they go back to the App Store and see that the price is lower than they're paying, then that's just not fair, I don't think.
Yeah. It will be a bad experience for them because you are charging them more than the average or a normal user for the same service. It's not
Yeah,
fair.
exactly. Yeah. And I think also if you're increasing prices, it makes sense to let your existing customers, unless you really have to keep the business running, but otherwise let your existing customers stay on the plan that they are, at least for some time, and then, so don't mess around too much with what you've already got, but just focus on new customers coming in that they might get a higher price from there.
Yes, exactly. I think the new customer will not have an idea about what was the old pricing, but your existing customer, we already know what they are paying for, and if you increase or decrease, they will know for sure.
Yeah. But you can also increase the price on them as well. You just have to do a lot more communication and be really open about why you're doing it. And hopefully a good time to do it is when you're coming out with some new features or something like that, is to give them something at the same time as you're also pricing.
Yes, justify the price. Because
yeah, exactly. Try to at least, right?
Yeah.
It's not easy.
Yeah, because it doesn't make sense to just increase the price for no reason. People will be getting confused why you are just increasing the price for no reason. It doesn't make sense.
Yeah, exactly. And I actually went from having a free app, started as a free app and eventually turned it into a freemium sort of model. And there we really went out with a lot of communication and basically said, hey, this is not viable for us to keep running with the amount of customers we have on it as a free app. So we need to start charging, and it will only be for customers that are above this amount of usage and so forth. And that went over really well. That was surprising that there wasn't more pushback or anything like that. But I think most people, it was after years of having the app for free. So I think the people that have had the app for a long time, they go, okay, yeah, I've been getting it for free for 3 years. It's okay if I have to pay a small amount to keep the service running, right?
Makes sense.
Yeah.
I think we are talking about Order Printer Pro, if I'm not wrong.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. So it actually started out as an app called Order Printer Emailer. And the only sort of feature it had was to take the order printer compatible code, like template code. And then when people clicked a link in their Shopify emails, they could download an invoice, or on the the checkout thank you page, they could say, download your invoice, and it would generate the PDF based on the template and the order. So it was a way to deliver these, instead of people printing everything, they could actually get it as a PDF document. And that was the app that was free to begin with for many years. And it was basically a really good channel to get people to buy my templates. So that was, again, capitalizing on Shopify's free order printer app, and then adding a feature it just didn't have and offering that for free. But then eventually, that did need to become a paid product to continue running. It had a lot of users and everything else. And then there was a fun story that I can't tell, but basically we added all the printing features to that app as well at one point. And eventually, so it became a replacement for the Shopify order printer app. It could do all the same things, but also do these PDF doc and everything else. And that actually turned out to be the biggest app that we had. It was, a strange journey for that app, but it turned out well.
Awesome. Love that. So you mentioned that this app will be creating also template. So it will be linked to the other app that will be creating template that is alternative to our free Shopify app.
Yeah.
So do you think still a good idea to be able to compete with the Shopify, I would say, first party app? Because some of them have a very bad rating. I don't know why, but do you think it's still a good idea to be able to compete with them?
Yeah, definitely. I used to always be really scared of Shopify releasing new sort of first party apps, right? But generally what we've seen, and you can see it by the ratings, right, is that they have the most basic functionality to be able to offer that feature, right? And they might take part of the market, but anybody requiring something more advanced or more polished and so forth, they will go hunting for apps like that. So I think in some cases it does help to bring people to the App Store to look for alternative solutions. Yeah, but I guess I wish the ranking would take the rating of those apps a bit more into account when showing them in the App Store, right? Because they seem to have a very high ranking for the ratings that they have. But I think they do help to bring people into the App Store and to find other solutions as well.
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah. Because this is a good point to mention, because when I was doing some research about a Shopify app, I found a first-party app that has a bad rating. I was thinking, that is a Shopify app and have a bad rating. It's really, I would say, awkward moment for me.
Yeah.
It's like their own Shopify app. They are not taking a lot of effort in consideration to be able to make the app better. Maybe it's not in terms of like functionality, but in terms of feature, to be able to customize and extend the feature of the app. But as you mentioned, the app will just have the basic functionality. If you would like to have more customization, just build an app to compete with them, and the customer will find you through the first app to the first party Shopify app.
Yeah, exactly. And I think also merchants are probably harder on Shopify apps than they are on our apps, right? So I think they get a beating in the ratings as well, simply because they might expect more from Shopify themselves, right? And when they run into bugs, they think, hey, why does this take a long time to fix or something like that? To be fair, on the Shopify apps, I think some of them are okay, and maybe they get a beating, and we maybe don't talk so nicely about them all the time, but I think they do help to bring in the basic functionality. And I think when I was starting out, those types of apps were the apps that we were building, really, like the basic functionality for these different features. And that's because it just didn't exist, or you couldn't do it in any other way. Whereas now, the Shopify platform does support so many different things that having just the most basic functionality just isn't enough. You do need to build something a bit more polished and a little bit more feature rich than you would have many years ago.
Awesome. Yeah, that makes sense. And we will have time for your last app, which is Digital Download Pro.
Yeah.
Can you give us more insight about this one?
Yeah, sure. So it's our latest app. We launched it last year. And it's for digital products, right? So if you're selling any digital type of file online, or you might be selling software with license keys and things, then Digital Downloads Pro can help you manage that and to deliver these files securely to your customers. And yeah, it's an idea. The whole sort of digital downloads was one of the first ideas I was thinking about doing when I got into Shopify. And so it's stuck with me for many years. And now, over the last few years, I've been building this sort of new development framework for all of our Shopify apps. So it's like our engine, which includes all the parts that we think a good Shopify app should have, and it's a framework. And so Digital Downloads Pro was the first app that we built using this new framework, which was a really fun sort of technical challenge, using all these different, all the newer technologies within Rails. And it was really nice to be able to build an app like it's 2023 or whatever it was, instead of a lot of legacy code in my other apps that we've now got upgraded. But still, it was really nice to build an app in more modern technologies as well.
Yes. Yeah. It's a good feeling to be able to work with the new technology.
Yeah.
Some of them will be harder to migrate if you already have a legacy code and you have paying customer. It will be hard to migrate off to another technology, and maybe there is not a lot of, I would say, support for feature that you already have in the other app. So it will be a hard decision for you to be able to make.
Yeah, and we also, with one of the other apps we made, we tried to create a whole brand new code base, like a version 2, redid it again, right? And just the risk of getting that out without breaking everything for everyone for that particular app was just too high in the end. So what we ended up doing was going back and then incrementally upgrading the existing code base, right? And it's just such a less risky way to upgrade something. But it does mean that, you do have to, you can't just throw everything out and start again, right? You've got to work with the legacy that you've got and try and improve upon that. But it's a much less risky way to do it in the end.
Yes.
But also for Digital Downloads Pro, one of the reasons we decided to do it, or I decided to finally do it, was that Cloudflare came out with their R2 service. So R2 is like Amazon S3. So they've just basically said, instead of S3, we'll call it R2, which is one down from both, right? But it's basically the exact same service. But the main difference is that you don't have egress fees. So like transferring files out. which basically means on AWS S3, if you've got 10 gigs of files and you're sending those out 10 times a day, you've got a lot of bandwidth going out, and that bandwidth you have to pay for on Amazon. Whereas with Cloudflare, you don't pay for the bandwidth. You just pay for the storage. So you only pay for storing the 10 gigs, but you don't actually pay for delivering it up to a certain size. And that up to a certain size is giant. And if we were starting to pay for egress fees on R2, then the app is doing really well. So it actually made, like, from a business perspective, it started to make sense, and you'd be able to compete on offering storage, order processing and things that you just wouldn't be able to do on S3 because it would be much more expensive to deliver those files.
Yeah, makes sense. I think it was a good choice to be able to pick the other one, the Cloudflare, because as I mentioned, AWS S3, it will get expensive because you will have a lot of user clicking and getting the file out. So it will be
exactly.
it will be a high bill at the end of each month.
Yeah, and in the end, you have to calculate your pricing for the app based on that. So
yes.
It's nice to be able to safely offer certain pricing for the app without getting any surprises later on, which is nice.
Awesome. So I think we cover all the Shopify app that you made. We give the audience a more overview about what you are building inside of your company. Can we talk more about number of active user, number of install, maybe revenue, if you mind sharing?
So I won't break it down into certain apps or anything like that, but in total we have over 100,000 active installs across all of our apps, which is all paying customers, but definitely active installs. So yeah, that's a high number.
Yes.
And sometimes I like to put things in perspective to try and get an idea, because we all sit behind our computers and it all feels very detached from reality in some sense, right? But if you went to a giant football stadium and filled it with people, then they would all be users of the app or something like that, or they've at least all installed the app, which is a wild way to think about it, I think.
Yeah, it's like sometimes we are thinking about especially number in terms of in tech in general. If you imagine it in real life, it will be like a big difference.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, so maybe like a good way to talk about user numbers is like, what size stadium could you fill, right? Is it a giant football stadium, or is it the local pool or something?
Yeah, that's really good to be able to think in perspective.
Yeah, I like it.
Awesome. Yeah, and also you have like 3,300 review on the App Store, positive review on the App Store, which is a big number in the Shopify App Store, because in the App Store we have 30K Shopify apps, and this is like a big chunk of it.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, and I wish I could say like some magic way to get lots of reviews, but it really comes down to just giving really good support and then asking for a review once you know that you've given really good support. And then if you keep getting reviews at a steady pace, then after many years I've been in the App Store, then you end up with really large numbers. But very proud of the number of reviews we've got. We've always been, I've always tried to focus on doing customer services really well, and then working now with the support heroes who take care of our customer services. They get lots of reviews for us as well through interactions, and often they're named within the reviews as well.
Awesome.
It's really nice, and I really enjoy looking at some of the wording in those reviews and stuff. You can see that it actually does make back to the difference between sitting behind a computer and reality, that somebody out there is in their store somewhere and had a really good experience, and we're making their life a little bit easier, right?
Yes.
Yeah, it's a nice way to look at things.
Yeah, exactly. It's really special. The problem we are, because we are always behind the screen. I don't know what the impact you made for the work that you did. For example, I have in my podcast website, I have the wall of love where I put all the things that people say good about the podcast, and sometimes I get a DM or a message that's about the podcast, or sometimes I'm meeting someone in person and they are saying good thing about the work that you do. It's really special to have this moment, because you are always behind the screen. I do not know what people think about your work, and it's really special to get this feeling and this, I would say, compliments from other people about your work.
Yeah, 100%. I really agree. And I think you need to remember, like you've done, you've created the wall of love. You got to take time to appreciate that sometimes and sit down and look at it. And, because otherwise it just does feel like work with more work on top. So it's nice to see that it actually does make a difference.
Yes, exactly. It's really a special moment.
Yeah.
So I think you mentioned in the company website that the company was started because you want to have more freedom and flexibility in life and not create the next Facebook or manage a lot of people. I would like to decouple this phrase into two parts. The first part will be about the starting point, and the other part was managing a lot of people. So can you elaborate more about this phrase, about the freedom, and what the challenges that you face while creating this more freedom and flexibility? Just
Sure.
behind the scene, behind a backstory of this phrase.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess it came from working. It was a great place to work, the investment bank. They build like online trading platforms, so you can buy stocks, foreign exchange, or all this type of thing through the internet. So it was a wonderful place to work. It was very much suit and tie, and you were there from at least 9 till 5, and if not longer, if something came up. And you had a BlackBerry back in the day, and you was on that after work if something important came up. And it just didn't feel like that's the life I wanted to live for the rest of my time. And starting a family, and after I met my wife and everything, and it just felt, hey, I would much more like to be able to go to all my kids at school things, or drive them to sports, all these types of little things in life. Or, hey, the sun's out, let's go sit at a cafe and work, or all these type of things. Or, hey, let's just dish work today. We've done everything we need to do. Let's go do something else. And I just couldn't see the life that I had at that time being like that, right? It was a very different path. And so I wanted to try and create that. And I guess the whole about not building the next Facebook is finding that balance between, I want to build a successful company. I like money like other people do. I want to make money. And then finding the balance between going after building the company while also retaining some of that freedom. And I'd love to say that, I did that the whole time, but no way. Sometimes I worked a lot building these apps and supporting them. And I think up until 2020, started 2020, when COVID and all that came around, and I was still doing everything myself, but more and more of my day was just being taken up by customer support, which is a good thing because it means you've got lots of customers coming on, but I was getting less and less done, and I was having less and less time to be able to do the other things in life that I enjoy. And so then, that's when hiring some people made sense. And I'd met the support heroes, so that they helped out with customer service from that point on, and that freed up a lot of my time. And eventually I talked my wife into joining the company as well, helping out with marketing and things like that. And then I've also worked with some excellent freelance developers over time to help out on taking on some of the development tasks and things like that. But I don't enjoy managing people. I had a small team at the investment bank that I was managing, and I'm not very good at it. It's not the part of work that I enjoy. I'm not a good manager. I like being down into the details or up into the strategizing layer, but I'm just not a good manager. So I knew that I don't want to build a big team of people that I have to manage, and because then I'll be doing that instead of the things that I actually enjoy. And story short, was basically trying to find a balance between building a successful company and without turning it into a big company.
Yes, makes sense.
Yeah, but it's something I've had to focus on, so that one of those didn't just take off on its own, but then you have to go, hang on, now I need to stop hiring people because I'm spending more time on that and things like that. So
yes, makes sense. And I think you mentioned a really good thing, and especially about managing people. And it doesn't make it. It's not like a formula. If you would like to start a successful business, you need to manage a lot of people, and especially because also you are bootstrapping the company. You don't have a VC fund, and for example, startup that will have VC fund, when they are raising money, investor will tell them to be able to hire more people, to be able to rapidly grow and scale all of these things. But sometimes when you are managing a lot of people, it will eat up a lot of your time, And instead of focusing on growing the business, you are focusing on managing the people, which is not a good thing. So you should instead like focusing on the business and grow it instead of managing a lot of people. And managing people is really hard. It's really hard. It's not an easy task. And yeah, I think you did it well. You did explain all the thing well.
Thank you.
I appreciate that a lot.
Yeah, no problem. And I don't think that's not to say it's the only right way to do it, right? So some other people might be great with managing others and or even just hiring another person to be good at managing people. And that would have maybe been a good way for me to do it, is to find one person that was great at leading a team. But at the same time, yeah, I wanted to keep the company small and profitable. So the more people you hire, the less profitable you are, anyway. But there's lots of different ways to do this, and this felt like the right way for my company, and is what I set out to do at the beginning. So it feels like, it worked out well.
Yeah, it really does.
There's a lot of luck in there as well, right? Timing and all this type of thing. So
yes, I would say each one has like a different formula of success. Because everyone has a different background, has a different environment, and I would say each one they will get their own luck. I would say because each one will have like different circumstances and environment, and everyone they will make it with what they have.
Yeah, exactly. And each path is unique, and there's no set way to do something. And if somebody else tried to do the same thing as me, it would probably work out different. And if I was trying to do the same thing as somebody else, it would work out different anyway. So
yes, exactly. Yeah. Each one is unique.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
You mentioned in your LinkedIn bio that you are the CEO of Forsberg too, which you mentioned it is like a chief internal optimist at Forsberg too, which is really funny, and it's really clever way of saying that. What is like being a CEO at Forsberg?
I'm not even sure if you could say it's a CEO role, because there's no other offices, right? Chief.
Yeah.
But the name of the chief eternal optimist came actually from a merchant who was contacting support, and they had it as their little line at the end of the. And I asked him, "Hey, I really like that, cheeky but fun at the same time. Can I borrow it?" And they said, "Yeah, of course." So I've had it there, and I think you have to be optimistic when you're running these type of things. You've got to keep positive. Because it's not as smooth sailing and easy, right? But yeah, being a chief eternal optimist at Forsberg Plus 2, I think so we have about the whole freedom things. We can, walk the kids to school or be here when they come back with friends, or, take them everywhere they go and that type of thing. So I think being the CEO is quite flexible, but obviously at times I'll be working more than others. I've found that when I do hire other people, it does make my life easier in some ways. So I should consider being better at that, or trying to learn it a bit more.
Okay, makes sense.
Yeah.
Also, can you give us more a day in a life of Bjorn from the start until the end, just to give the audience more perspective about how being an entrepreneur and running a successful Shopify business?
Yeah, so it's a bunch of stuff. And Mondays I'll sit down, and we use Basecamp to manage all of our projects. And so we have a lot of Basecamp projects, one for each app, and different things that we're working on. Something for the yearly plan, where we'll have a bunch of points of things that we think this year makes sense to do. But basically, we'll get up and get the kids ready for school, and then send them off. And then I'll drink some coffee and scroll Twitter for a bit. And then if I'm not working out, then I'll sit down and answer generally inboxes, so either my personal inbox, or if there's something that's been escalated from the support team. And that's generally Monday, Wednesday, and Fridays. I check those. And then, and then it really depends on what the project for the day is. So on Mondays, we plan out our week and to highlight the different to-dos or things in Basecamp that we're going to be working on. But yeah, so I might go from doing answering emails to then doing some development, or reviewing PRs that other people have written and hoping to deploy those to production. And then maybe we'll look at, we're updating our Google Ad banners. So then we'll start looking at those, and my wife will be doing all the graphics and things for those, and then we'll start rolling them out. That's this week. And then, we might be building a new website, very varied depending on what the day looks like. But then we'll have lunch around 12-ish, sit outside in the sun and have lunch. And then the kids will start coming home from school about, 2 o'clock or something like that. And then our day starts winding down. So if we've got other things we want to do. But yeah, some days are longer than others. But generally, I'll be at work from, about 9 till 2 or something, like focused. And then it'll start getting less focused from that. So if we've got meetings and things, it might be in the afternoon when I like to keep, most meetings out of focused time for work. A single day is impossible to describe because every day is different. There's so many different things that you sort of end up covering. You'll see some updates from Shopify that you want to jump on, or a new API that's opened up that you can take a look at. Or I'm trying to get more into all these UI extensions, which is a new way of doing things. I'm not a great React coder or anything like that. So it's also a learning curve to see, okay, how do I build these small React components? So I've been spending some time researching that and playing around. But yeah, a typical day, I guess you could look at the time that I work, but what I do in those hours is going to be quite different from day to day.
Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah, it's each day has a different taste or different.
Yeah, but I like to divide weeks. So some weeks I'll be like, oh, great, I've got this coding thing that I want to get done. And then I'll be in a coding flow. So then all of a sudden I might jump over into another app and start, making a small improvement or fixing a bug or something like that. So I'll find as I get into more coding, I'll focus on that for the week. And if I'm doing more marketing based, then, it won't just be the one marketing task, but I might do multiple marketing tasks that week. So we have sort of these iterations, and I'm not context switching quite as much. At least my mind is in a marketing mode, or it's in development mode, or things like that. I find that quite helpful.
Okay, yeah, makes sense. I do like to context switch because I cannot focus for something for a long time.
Okay, yeah.
Like to quickly to get, especially when I am having a bug or something that drove me crazy. I would like just to context switch to get some fresh air and maybe to just get some momentum running. And after that, I will go back to that annoying bug.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think sometimes, especially with coding, if you're trying to design something, like the architecture of something, sometimes I find it really helpful to just start thinking about it and go, okay, these are the parts that I'll need and everything else. And then let it be in your mind for a few days, because all of a sudden I'll get this, oh, that's how I should do it. It'll just pop up some random time. And then I find, okay, that's a much better solution than if I just jumped into it straight away. So it needs to marinate sometimes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So can you give us more, I would say, overview of the people that you are working with in the company? So you mentioned your wife and the customer support. Can you give us how many people you are working with?
Yeah,
technical
sure.
and non-technical.
Yeah, so work with my wife on marketing, and she also does like bookkeeping, and she's been doing that for many years before I talked her into coming on board full time. Yeah, so she handles all graphic design, social media, websites, and all kinds of creative good things. Then I also work with a freelancer, Kirill, on a part-time basis, and he's just an amazing developer. So I learn a lot by working together with him.
Awesome.
Yeah, and then we have the customer support team, who it's hard to say like exactly how many are working on our account at any one time because they're covering multiple apps and things like that, but they're upwards of 10 people or something. Yeah, and like I said, they do an excellent job and cover 24/7 and everything. So it's just a really nice, team to have behind you. But then, and for me at least, the bonus is that I don't have to manage people. I get to work with them, which is wonderful, but I don't have to manage all the stuff related. So it's definitely worth the cost for me. And that's it. Yeah, so it's a small team. But I guess what I've learned, and obviously the journey would be different for some people, but at least for me, is that I've found time is also an important factor in having a Shopify app. You can't do everything or grow it at the speed that you always want to. But if you can just consistently keep rolling that snowball, it will get larger over time, and you have to give it the time. So I'm not always in such a big hurry. And maybe I was towards the start. When I was just starting out, I was probably in a more hurry than I am now. But I've sort of learned to be more patient as time goes.
Awesome. Yeah, makes sense. And so you have yourself, you are the technical person, you have part-time developer, you are running that successful business just with two technical person. That's really amazing. And it's really powerful. And it's really good to mention because some people think they will need like a big engineer team to just run a successful business, which is not the case because you have a successful business and you are just the two of just like
Yeah.
have like two technical people. It's really amazing to mention.
Yeah, thank you. There's a lot of work in it.
Yes.
too, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. But yeah, it's been fun and I enjoy building. So I think I don't want to get too many other people to take all that away because then I don't get to do what I really enjoy as well.
Yes.
But it's also built over many years, right? So I think when you're going to launch a new app, it can take a lot more time if it's just you doing it. But maintaining the apps, I think, is the as a small team.
Yep, makes sense. You mentioned what we are talking about your day, like a day-to-day life. You mentioned keeping updates with the Shopify app, with the Shopify. I have two questions related to that. How did you keep update? How do you keep up to date with the Shopify updates? And how did you find the Shopify Edition event? So
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so changelog is obviously one of the best places to go looking for new things from Shopify, but also just Twitter and following a lot of different people on Twitter, then you'll see the important things popping up, what people are talking about and so forth. But I think over time I've also learned to ignore a lot of the noise because it can become overwhelming as well. There's just so many updates and so much. To begin with, I was like, oh, I need to learn it all. I need to stay up to date on everything. And in the end, you should focus on the things that actually matter for your business or for your app and try and filter out the noise. Staying up to date is a difficult balance because it can become overwhelming, but you also need to do it to stay on top of things. But generally, I think Shopify, they'll send out emails and things on important updates, so you can stay up to date in that way.
yeah, makes sense.
Yeah. And also, if I'm going to be updating something, I'll always go check what the latest API documentation for something is and go looking for new things or, to see, can I make this easier for myself by just using a new API or something?
Yeah, makes sense. And the good thing that Shopify moving to GraphQL, so we don't have to deal with REST anymore.
I'm on the opposite fence on that one, but I can see the usefulness of GraphQL. A lot of my apps work with the order resource, and the order resource on GraphQL is really difficult because you have so many associations, right? So you have like line items, you have transactions, and at least for my apps, I can't just say, give me the first 20 line items. I need all of them. And so REST there is much easier because you just say, give me this order, and it gives you all the information for that order. But I think that's just because of my use case, because there's anything wrong with GraphQL.
I feel your pain.
I think if I was working with some of the other APIs, then GraphQL makes a lot more sense. But
yes,
the feeling is it's going to become GraphQL only at some point, right? So
unfortunately for you. It's really hard when you have a complex query to be able to get all of the query, and there is a limitation for 250 per query that you are limited to, which is not great. If you have a lot of like a line item and a lot of products, you have to do pagination and stuff, which is not that good.
But that's where webhooks could help out as well, because webhooks will give you the entire payload as well.
Yes.
Yeah, it just depends how you've architected the app to begin with, I guess.
Yes, exactly. And the second part will be about how did you find the Shopify Edition event with over 1,000 developers from all over the world.
Yeah, it was great. I always love those Shopify events, and even if they're not the official Shopify ones, I enjoy going to them. And obviously the big keynotes at the start are always really fun to watch, and usually the closing keynotes and stuff. But the thing I really enjoy is just meeting lots of other developers or people in the community, and especially meeting old, you could say, friends, and also making new ones.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's all the stuff around the conference that's walking around, bumping into people, saying hi, swapping stories and things is always really interesting.
Yeah, exactly. It was my first Shopify event ever.
Okay.
It was really great to meet all of the people that I know from Twitter, from LinkedIn, all of the OG of the Shopify space. Like you and Chris, the host of the unofficial podcast. It was really great meeting him also. And it was a really great experience having all of this developer, as you mentioned, they are not just going for the Shopify edition itself, but for what is coming around the Shopify, like at the event, meeting other people, listen to fun story, interesting story about how did you get started into Shopify. It was really amazing to get all of this stuff. And I feel it was really packed. I feel like it's like a 3 days packed in a 1 day.
Yeah.
It was really, like I go back to the hotel. I was like with zero energy.
Yeah. I often lose my voice at those events, right? Because you end up talking so much from start to finish. Events have been 2 days, which I feel was better because you don't feel like so rushed and there's so much content. So I guess I wish that they'd been able to space it out. And there was some talks that you want to go to both at the same time and things like that.
Yeah.
But I think it was great that they actually did an in-person event again, because they've had a lot of online ones over the last few years. But yeah, so it was worth a trip, definitely. Hopefully they do it again next year, and hopefully they do it 2 days. But I understand it becomes a lot more costly and expensive for them to put on and everything else, right? So
exactly. And yeah, I hopefully to attend the next one. It was really amazing to attend the first one. It was a really good experience.
Yeah, good.
I lost my voice.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, no problem.
So I think the last question will be for someone that would like to start into Shopify app business in this market. What thing do you would like to recommend them to? Online resources, books, I would say strategy. So I would say the lesson that you learn, so you can share with the audience to bypass some steps.
Yeah, man, that's a big question. Yeah, I think obviously studying all the Shopify material as much as possible, but also trying to pick an idea that's big enough that it can become a business. I think a lot of people go into it saying, oh, I could build this app. But really what you're trying to do is build a business, or what most people are trying to do is build a business. And so you need to remember that difference. So look at, okay, what type of app is going to have a large enough user base that it actually makes sense that you could build a business around it. And usually one of my ways of thinking about that is, do I expect Shopify to build this into the core platform? Or would I? And if the answer is yes, I'd be afraid of that, then it's probably a big enough idea, right? Because it sounds scary, but it generally never happens. And even if they do build something in, then it just creates a bigger market for that particular feature anyway. So yeah, you should be scared that Shopify will build it themselves. And then also, Polaris. Usually, like in the past, I would have said, go find some really good books on UX and things like that. But I think the, Polaris app design guidelines and everything else is not only very focused on what type of apps that they want to see, but also good study material for UX design and things like that. So studying that as much as possible and building using the Shopify provided frameworks makes sense. I think, making sure it's an embedded app and all these type of things is almost a must these days, I'd say. From strategy, I don't know. Yeah, like I said, pick a big enough idea, but also one of the books that really helped me when I was getting started was a book called Getting Real, by the 37 Signals, the guys that built Basecamp.
Yes.
It's a really old, really small book, but I still think it's one of the best books on building a SaaS out there. It'll take you like a day to read or whatever, and not even a couple of hours. But it just lays out all the basics that you should do and how I sort of also look at building products. Keep it simple, don't overdo things and stuff like that. There's also a really cool book on UX called Don't Make Me Think, I think it's called. It's a really old web design book, but it just goes around like how you think in the shoes of a user in a sense. And the point is to not make them think. It should be so obvious that they know what to do intuitively without having to think too much, because you're going to lose them if they have to think about things. That was a really good book from just building products and things. And marketing, like it is a big thing. And probably something I wish I was better at from the beginning, and I still struggle with because I prefer to build than to market. But focusing on the Shopify App Store, if you're going that route, is to keep improving the copy, the keywords. There's some great tools out there now that can help you see your rankings and things if you make certain changes and stuff. And every time I've gone through and done those type of copy changes, it's always been really positive for our App Store rankings or just people converting better because they better understand what our apps do. It's a tough question. There's so much in it. How many hours you got?
It's really a big question. But
Yeah.
I think you mentioned good resources for people to discover and to be able to learn more about. You mentioned Polarize. You mentioned and also there is like other Shopify template that you can use. For example, Remix template. You can just start it out. You have built-in inside. You have Polarize inside. So just start using as a base for your app, and from that you can start building your app. You mentioned some good resources for marketing. Don't make me think, because when you are like make the customer think, and it will create them some confusion, and they will maybe hesitate to install or subscribe to your app, which is not the goal of your business. Is to make them less confused and to make them subscribe to your app.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the less confusion, the easier it is, right? Yeah, there's a million things that that you have to learn, I guess, as you go. But like we started out talking about, it is learn as you go, as you run into things, learn it. Try and learn a little bit more every time you run into something, or you have to do. If you go into marketing, okay, how do I make good images or something like that? Just try and improve a little bit each time you do it, and hopefully at the end it all works out.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for sharing this good advice and useful resources. That's all the link that we mentioned will be in the description of the video. If you are listening from streaming platform, or you will be on the show note. Thank you so much, Bjorn, for accepting my invitation and for the time that you spent with us. It was really a pleasure hosting you. And can you share us a link that people can reach out to you and check out your work?
Yeah, of course. Our website's at forsbergplus2.com, and you spell it all out. And then on Twitter is the best place to reach out. But I really appreciate you having me on, and it's been a great chat, and a lot of fun.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.